Welcome back to my channel, my friends. It is officially autumn, at least where I'm living, and when I'm walking through the streets, I do not only see all the nice and beautifully multicolored leaves, I also smell it, the toffee nut and the pumpkin spice, which will soon be replaced with gingerbread. And more people in this cold season gravitate towards having a nice warm beverage in their hand, which very often is some sort of coffee. And for some people just like me, we don't make much of a difference what time it is in the year. I just know I like my life caffeinated. When I'm in the office, or when I'm at uni, when I'm meeting friends, or when I need to focus to do some deep work. And on some days, especially when there is a nice coffee place or I have access to a machine that can make you all sorts of different coffee beverages, I leave the building with more than necessary sweaty hands and a slight jitter. And who am I to be blamed? Coffee does not only taste nice and is super versatile, but it also works. And I know that there are so many people out there who feel the same. I come from a coffee family. Everyone except for my sister in my family loves their coffee. But besides being a coffee drinker, I am also a particularly bad sleeper. And I have thought about it lately that even though I try to do my best to prepare myself for a good night's sleep, I more often than not wake up feeling as if I have not rested well through the night. So I thought about how my constant coffee consumption is probably one of the key reasons that prevent me from having a good night's sleep. And you know what happened next? I made myself a nice cup of coffee and started researching what this coffee consumption is all about. And I have bad news for all the but first coffee people out there. In this video, I would like to first talk a little bit about caffeine, which is the stimulant that is most important in coffee and how it interacts with our body. Then I would like to cover the benefits, but also the downsides of coffee and its consumption. And lastly, I would like to give some tips how you can structure your coffee consumption so that you can get all the benefits while keeping the downsides very low. And now let's dive right into it. Coffee is one of the most widely consumed beverages globally, known for its stimulating effects due to its caffeine content. The world is united and at the same time split when talking about coffee, because many cultures are agreeing on the fact that coffee is great, but also each and every culture says that they make the best version of it. But now comes the question how it is that people around the world like coffee so much. And most probably it's because of the caffeine in it. Because when we are very honest, when trying coffee for the first time, it is rarely ever that people say that they like the taste straight away. So it is probably not for the taste, but for what it does to us that we like coffee so much. Therefore, let's dive into what coffee does to our body and mind. Caffeine is a psychoactive stimulant that is involved in a variety of mechanisms in the brain. First and foremost, caffeine acts like a reinforcing agent for experience. So caffeine increases the probability that you will return to a certain place or engage in a certain activity. Secondly, it stimulates neurotransmitters and modulators associated with alertness and cognition. It increases dopamine and acetylcholine in the forebrain and therefore improves your ability to think and to form or alter certain strategies, for example, towards social situations or towards dealing with mental and physical demands. Furthermore, it increases the number and efficacy of dopamine receptors in the reward pathways of the brain. With these new dopamine receptors, things that already feel good can feel even better. Lastly, caffeine acts like an antagonist to adenosine, which means that you offset your sleepiness that you would otherwise feel. And that is because adenosine accumulates in your brain through the waking hours of the day, and with that causes a chemical sleeping pressure. Caffeine, however, then blocks the receptors that adenosine would usually connect to, and therefore your body does not know how long it has been awake or how tired it is, and therefore you don't feel this chemical sleeping pressure. With these basic facts about caffeine, I hope that you will understand the benefits and the downsides of coffee that we will get into now a little bit better. The caffeine in coffee as a psychoactive stimulant helps increase alertness, improve focus, and enhance cognitive function. It reduces reaction time, enhances accuracy, and helps with neuromodulators and transmitters that are connected to memory and learning. The enhanced dopamine activity through coffee consumption can contribute to feelings of enjoyment and motivation, and can improve your mood in general, as dopamine is associated with feelings of pleasure and reward. Some research also suggests that moderate coffee consumption could be associated with a lower risk of depression and an improved mood. This effect might be attributed to caffeine's ability to modulate neurotransmitters such as serotonin or dopamine, which play key roles in mood regulation. Apart from that, the caffeine in coffee can boost physical performance and overall well-being during exercise and exertion. On top of the alertness that we have already talked about and the related adrenaline, as well as the dopamine that your body releases while you do physical exercise in general, the release of dopamine through caffeine consumption can then help you to make the experience before, during and after physical exercise even more pleasant. And because of the fact that caffeine also acts as a reinforcing agent, you can also change your attitude towards physical activity through coffee consumption. In addition to that, coffee as a beverage has antioxidant properties. It is rich in chlorogenic acid and caffeic acid, which help neutralize harmful free radicals, especially in your brain, to reduce oxidative stress and inflammation. With that, coffee may reduce the risk of chronic diseases like cancer and chronic heart disease. Bringing the antioxidants, the dopamine release, as well as the enhanced dopamine system together, coffee also has neuroprotective properties, which, as some studies suggest, could reduce the risk of certain neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease. Last but not least, coffee consumption is often a social activity and can provide a sense of pleasure or comfort. Therefore, it can have social and psychological benefits, such as stress reduction and relaxation through the interaction with other people and the ritual of preparing and enjoying coffee. But, of course, there are also downsides to coffee. Consuming coffee, especially in large amounts or late in the day, can interfere with sleep patterns and lead to insomnia or disrupted sleep, which can tremendously impact your overall health and well-being. With a quarter life of up to 12 hours, caffeine consumed at 10 a.m. in the morning can still affect you as late as 10 p.m. in the evening. The effect of caffeine does not necessarily have to mean that you cannot fall asleep, but when you are managing to fall asleep anyway, it can affect your sleep depth and quality. Furthermore, the caffeine in coffee can temporarily raise your heart rate and blood pressure, which may pose risks for individuals with certain cardiovascular conditions or those that are very sensitive to caffeine. In addition to that, the raised heart rate and alertness can cause feelings of anxiety, jitteriness and nervousness, especially for people that are not caffeine adapted. Some people may experience gastrointestinal discomfort, such as acid reflux, heartburn, or stomach upset as a result of drinking coffee, especially when it is consumed on an empty stomach or in excess. Above that, regular coffee consumption can lead to tolerance, meaning that higher doses are needed to achieve the same effects over time. Additionally, dependence can develop, leading to withdrawal symptoms such as headaches, irritability, or fatigue when caffeine intake is reduced or discontinued abruptly. And now that we know how coffee affects our body and mind, we can try to alter our consumption behavior so that we make the best out of our daily coffee experience. And for that, you basically just need to look at two things: dose and timing. Let's start with dose. I would like to make this clear from the beginning on. Not everyone will respond to caffeine in the same way. There are a lot of different factors that come into play, but the most important one probably is how caffeine adapted you are. If you are a regular coffee drinker, your body has probably adapted processes and has learned to deal with caffeine already. But if you are very irregular in your caffeine consumption behavior, then your reaction is probably stronger to smaller amounts of caffeine already. Apart from the individual differences, research has shown that your body weight is a good measure to estimate a healthy, useful dose. Therefore, if you feel triggered by something that is related to your body weight, please take care of yourself and skip to the next timestamp to be safe. Studies have shown that 1 to 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight in one sitting is a tolerable dose for adults. If you're not used to caffeine, you should probably stick to the lower end of the range. In one sitting in this context is a very wobbly time frame to describe a session of you consuming your coffee beverage of choice. For people like me who make their coffee, then forget about making it, picking it up when it is already like half cold, then start sipping on it, and then just disappear into working session to then come back to life and remember, oh, I still got that coffee. One sitting is something very different than for people who sit down, have a coffee, or have their coffee quickly on the go. But in general, it is meant with that probably within 1 to a maximum of 2 hours that this one sitting is meant. For an adult person of 75 kilograms, this would mean that in this one sitting, a tolerable dose is 75 to 225 milligrams of caffeine. Now here's the tricky thing. Coffees are very different. There is a large variety of different coffee products, different roasts, different ways to prepare your coffee, and the caffeine content in them varies as widely as the amount of different coffee types that you can find out there. I have looked through different charts of governmental pages that published caffeine content amounts, but also through some product sites as well. And I have found that for a regular cup of coffee, the caffeine can be anything between around 77 milligrams of caffeine up to 410 milligrams of caffeine. So please be careful. The biggest difference that I have found is whether you brew yourself at home, use already pre-portioned capsules or pads for coffee machines, or if you get your coffee somewhere at commercial places or in cafes. Your homebrewed cup of coffee is probably somewhere in the range of 95 to 235 milligrams of caffeine. Whereas commercial places go wild because the smaller sizes there range from 180 to 230 milligrams of caffeine per cup, and they go up to 330 to 410 milligrams of caffeine for their largest sizes. Probably this also means that they do double shots of espresso in them or something like that. But imagine getting a large cup of coffee from a commercial place, and that basically for many people out there already exceeds a tolerable dose for adults in one sitting. So you should be careful in the choice that you make for your caffeinated beverage. In addition to just looking at the dose itself, it can also help to stay hydrated when drinking coffee. Caffeine has diuretic properties, which can increase urine output and can lead to dehydration if not compensated with sufficient fluid intake. And to make the best out of your coffee experience, it is crucial to not rely on coffee and its caffeine as a source of energy or appetite suppression. Instead, focus on nourishing your body with nutrient-dense foods and enjoy coffee as part of a balanced diet in general. Now let's come to the second part, which is timing. As we have talked about already, caffeine acts as an antagonist to adenosine. And while we of course want to have the effect that coffee makes us more awake, and that could be achieved by blocking the respective receptors that adenosine would usually connect to, we need to be careful. Because if we drink coffee first thing in the morning, our body is not able to get rid of all the adenosine that is already present in our brain. And that way, when then the caffeine effect goes away, so maybe you have coffee first thing in the morning, but then the effect probably around early afternoon-ish then starts to fade away slowly, all this adenosine and the new adenosine from the waking hours of that day has accumulated, will then start to connect to these receptors, and you will feel even more tired than you would have if you just had delayed your coffee intake in the morning in general. Because all this adenosine that is accumulated there is waiting passionately to tell our body how tired we actually really are. And of course, one could then argue, okay, if I get tired again, then I just drink a cup of coffee again. But then we have talked about the quarter life of coffee, which is very long. So continuing to drink coffee throughout the whole afternoon then will affect your sleep. And then you start this whole bad cycle. This pattern of consumption behavior will make everything just worse and worse all the time. Therefore, it is recommended to delay your first coffee of the day 90 to 120 minutes after waking, so that your body gets already rid of the adenosine that is still there and gets in the swing of things, and then you can add a little bit of caffeine to get more alert and more focused. At the other end of the time frame, it is recommended to not ingest coffee 10 to 12 hours prior to sleep because of the quarter life that caffeine has. Putting all these things together, you get a very particular frame of conditions for your coffee consumption. And that is when you wake up 6:30 in the morning, you wait until 8 to 8:30 to have your first coffee of the day. Hopefully for this first coffee, you will pick a coffee product that does not exceed the recommended amount of caffeine for one sitting. And if you would like to go to bed around 11 p.m. in the evening, it would be good to stop drinking coffee around 11 in the morning. To me, the first time that I thought this really through, I was shocked, because for a very long time, I was enjoying my coffee first thing in the morning, and sometimes enjoying it until as late as 6 p.m. in the evening. All I would like to say to this optimal coffee consumption is, it's all about balance. Now that I know all these facts, I can alter my coffee consumption behavior, but no one is forcing me to stick to it that particularly. I have changed my behavior around coffee, and it was hard in the beginning, and I am feeling like it's giving me benefits, but on some days I drink coffee later than 12 hours before I go to sleep, or sometimes do not wait the full 2 hours until I have my first coffee of the day. But in general, I have reduced my coffee consumption to kind of these time frames to give myself the opportunity for bettering my sleeping behavior and not feeling so tired all the time. And of course, sometimes I get my commercial coffee on the go because I really want to enjoy it. And I know that this dose probably exceeds the amount of caffeine that I should have in one sitting. But still, life is there to be lived. We are no robots, and all the content that I put out here is just for you to be able to be informed and to know about these things, and then to act accordingly how it suits your life and how it makes your life more balanced. So my personal advice would be to just go with what feels right for you, and if you want to change something, you can do that, but start small, because we all know if we go from 0 to 100%, we will probably not stick with it in the long run. Give yourself time to adapt to this new kind of behavioral pattern that you would like to induce for yourself. So to conclude, overall, while moderate coffee consumption can have many benefits for you, consuming coffee in excess or late in the day can do completely adverse effects. It's essential to remember that individual differences to how your body reacts to caffeine can vary widely. Therefore, monitoring your consumption and adjusting it accordingly is key to maintain a healthy balance. I hope that the facts about coffee and caffeine and the tips on your coffee consumption can help you to enjoy your coffee and all its benefits while minimizing the negative effects. And because I'm following these principles already in some way, I cannot give you the first impression or reaction. So I thought it would be interesting for me to do a little caffeine reset, where I give my body a week without caffeine and see how I'm going. I will give you all the details why this can, for some people, be a helpful approach in the next video. But as of now, this cup, and it's already pretty empty, is the last coffee that I will have for the next 7 days. Am I scared? Yes, but I think this will be a nice experiment and challenge. And with that being said, I'd say stay curious, look after yourself, and I'll see you for decaffeinating week very soon. Bye.